Well, good morning to you all, and I'm excited to share with you all about the way of a wingman, and uh, and so yeah, I'm going to attempt to do the infamous screen share, and so we'll see if I can pull that off, and look at that. Um, yeah. So I want to talk to you this morning about the way of a wingman. We use the expression wingman in recovery because there's a person who's going to walk with us, to hold us accountable, to help us um, maintain our sobriety, um, to be there to encourage us in tough times, maybe to call us to greatness and to not let us keep going with excuses. And so I want to talk to you about the role or the way of a wingman, and who's got your back, and maybe whose back do you have? Because there's a co-responsibility that needs to be shared between your wingman and you as a wingman and the person that you are also holding accountable. So I'm wanting to look at this, and you'll see from the handout that there's the top 10 proverbs of accountability, and I want to walk through that with you to um, fully understand what it means to be a wingman or to have an accountability partner. Because remember, we continue to say the opposite of addiction is connection. Connection is being open to somebody, being authentic with somebody, being transparent with somebody. Remember, the addict is not only addicted to the struggles with porn and whatever goes with it, but most are also addicted to lying, to living in the shadows, to posturing yourself, to hiding, to not revealing what's going on, and in so doing, walking in shame and fear of being discovered. And it's a very unhealthy way to live. And but the point is, it's accountability partner is not there just to hold the pail while we puke. Accountability partner is one to say, well, just maybe tell me what you've been eating. What did you have? Like, let's look at why you're throwing up all over, as opposed to just holding the bucket. And we need to look at what Proverbs says about accountability. And you're going to start working through the handout, so if you want to follow along. But people have needed other people for centuries. God actually created us with a relational need, to be loved and to also learn to love. To be understood is also to understand others. So whether it's in the trenches, on the field, the idea of a band of brothers, a brotherhood is a sacred thing. And Proverbs shows us that it's critical to have a wingman, a person to stand with us through our adversities and our trials. And my prayer is that the Proverbs would guide you here. There's 10 different Proverbs that we're going to look at. Just for fun, this is my flight crew. This is who walks with me. My 4 married kids and my 13 grandkids. That flight crew makes me a millionaire. But here's an interesting little bit of history. This is my dad, who's passed away some time ago, 6.5 years ago. But my dad was a flying officer in World War II, and a wingman was originally the plane flying beside you, slightly behind the lead plane in aircraft formation. And this second pilot in line was called the wingman because he or she primarily protected the lead guy by watching his back. And so if I was on the right side of this formation, I'd be really watching the right side because I'm trusting someone else to be my wingman and watch the left side because I'm on the right side of the formation. You understand? And so, so we we have the idea of a wingman because they played off the wing. You played off the wing a little bit back, and then they've got your back. Literally is where the idea came from, and that'd be something very familiar with Flying Officer Ken Archibald Currie, and yeah, I still have his flying ace hat and some of his other artifacts there that are really special to us. But what role does a wingman play? And I want to look at this, not just what the wingman's got to do for me, but it's what role do I play in the proper utilization of a wingman? Do you hear the distinction? Yes, you do need to find a good wingman, but you also need to be willing to be accountable. In an earlier discussion, Austin, one of the leaders, says, well, what do you think is critical, Dave? A really good question. What is really critical? What's the most important factor or element to really make accountability work? Great question. And so for all of you here was my answer. And it's really important that we focus on that, because a person could be accountable to me, but not really, because they're not being honest. And I say to me as if I'm sacred or something. I don't mean that. I mean just that, because I certainly have teeth and I kind of understand the journey, and and I've I want the person to move on, and when they're reaching out in the crisis, I'm willing to reach out and encourage. But a person could be accountable to a strong, gifted, overcoming wingman, but not really be accountable because they're not willing to be vulnerable, not willing to connect, not willing to open up, not willing to humble themselves, not willing to surrender. And if you're not willing to let your accountability partner ask you questions like, well, this is the third day in a row that you've been puking in this bucket. Why don't we look at what you're eating? Why don't we look at what you're doing to cause this? And if you don't let the accountability partner ask good questions and you're not being honest, that's the horrendously silly thing about you're kind of playing the game of accountability because you're not really being accountable. So this is a discussion that is going to focus on, yes, the role of a wingman, but it's not just about what that person has to do for me. It's also asking what kind of person you need to be to make this wingman thing work. And so let's look at these together. Okay, come on, let's go. There we go. So Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. Well, there's some amazing truths in there. A friend, wingman, accountability partner, loves at all times. There's a consistency to the love through thick and thin. And that brother is born for a time of adversity. Recovery is a time of adversity. You're trying to work through something that's had a grip on you for a long time. And so the beautiful picture of an accountability partner, a wingman, is that there's that consistency, and it's there for the time of adversity. And so the principle is a wingman is a faithful friend who has your back through thick and thin. But if you're not surrendering, if you're not humbling yourself, it's not on the wingman to, well, he's not checking up on me. No. It's not his or her job. If like, as there's women that listen to this too, but it's not the wingman's job to be checking on you and how you doing today, how you doing tomorrow, how you doing the next day, and you'd be checking. No, it's your job to volunteer how you're doing. Because if you're not going to be honest and transparent, they could ask 40 questions and it doesn't do anything good at all, because they can have your back, but you've got to also volunteer yourself about the adversities that you're in. And it's not their job to while they need to be faithful and love through adversity and be there at all times, it's your job to acknowledge that there's a need there. So that's the first man, Wingman Principle 1. Wingman Principle 2, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. For about 6 or 8 years, I had 2 men's groups that I led on just becoming a godly man, and it was called Iron Men Incorporated, based on this verse. And the image is a steel, which is a rod with some variegation on it, and a metal knife, and you actually, you hold the rod out here, and then you, just like a butcher sharpens his knife and keeps his knife sharp. Now I worked for a number of summers while I was going through school at a meatpacking plant where my dad was the sales manager. And so at 19, 20, 21, I was working at a meatpacking plant. I know how to keep a knife really sharp with this steel. But just what they're saying, as iron sharpens iron, as the one piece of metal with the variegation on it allows me to keep this knife razor sharp, that I could just go right through a piece of paper with my butchering knife. It says that one man sharpens another, and it's such a beautiful picture of iron sharpening iron. The accountability partner is going to have grit and grace. Grace, I'm going to keep loving you, but grit, not going to allow this. Going to call you to greatness. And So the principle here is your wingman or accountability partner needs to have teeth, a little bit of grit. That rod of steel that's going to actually change the feeling. It's going to sharpen the man who's being held accountable. But if the person who's being held accountable isn't honest, isn't transparent, like to say, he didn't call me. I was getting close to relapse. He didn't call, and so yesterday I relapsed, but he didn't call and just ask how I was doing. No, that's not how it works. The deal is, if you start feeling that you're struggling, then you need to reach out, and they need to ask the questions that would be appropriate to keep you on track. But they need to be free to create a few sparks, to create a little grit, and that accountability partner's perseverance designed to bring the best out of you. God's designed for you. But there's a equal responsibility of what the wingman's role is, and the person who is willing to be accountable, that needs to make changes. There's a mutual responsibility. It's not on the wingman. Matter of fact, I would say that more of the role is on the person who's needing to get through the addiction. Wingman number 3, Proverbs 18:24. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Remember, you're the average of 5 the closest friends that you hang around with. And I challenge you to be one for others, that you would be a good friend, that you would ask the hard questions, that you would show interest. And, when a guy reaches out struggling, that's the time you need to show up as a wingman. But it's not your job to, I got to remember to ask the right questions, because if I don't ask him the right questions, he doesn't tell me about things. Okay, so that person is not being accountable. They're being a liar. They're still playing games. And so it shouldn't be up to the accountability partner or wingman to ask the right questions to make sure he's not deceiving me. No, there needs to be a complete, humble surrender to accountability, and to be transparent and admit when you're struggling, and be honest. Be honest with yourself, be honest with God, be honest with other people, especially your wingman. It's not that person's job to magically ask the right question, or you should have sensed that I wasn't doing good. No, you should have said that you weren't doing good. And so there's this mutual responsibility. But to have, I'm honored to have good people in my life And I like walking close to really godly men. I like being in their circle of influence, and I hope that I can be a gift back to them. One of my closest friends is burying his father today in Saskatchewan. Passed away on Saturday of the last week, and yeah, so I mean, I've been texting him, praying for you today. Hope the memorial goes well, and these kind of things. And but I look at his life, and I count it a privilege to be one of his friends, and I hope that I can be an encouragement to him. But you are the average of the 5 closest people you hang around with. And by the way, hanging around with and being honest with and giving to them as they give to you. I mean, there are people on this call that I know a lot about their life because they've been in counseling with me and you've sat numerous hours in my office. But out of that has grown a trust and a level of interaction that's way beyond Dr. Dave was our counselor. Are you kidding me? Numerous of you have been in my home, and I see your life as being sharpening mine. But again, I have to be reliable to be transparent to my wingman, and my wingman has to be reliable to stick close to me during the ups and downs of my recovery. So principle wingman 3. Wingman 4, wounds from a friend can be trusted. Or original, I learned it, are faithful are the wounds of a friend. It might sting a little bit with your, because here we are, as it were, a group of laymen trying to encourage each other in the right direction in recovery, hopefully coached well by those of us who speak from time to time. But there is a willingness to surrender, and when he says hard things, he's calling you to greatness. I want my wingman to call me to greatness, and if he says something that stings a bit, I got to accept, well, why would he be saying that? I should look at this, right? And it's really critical. A wingman is designed to shoot straight. It might sting, but don't doubt your wingman. I can't believe what that guy said. Who does he think he is? No, that's a proud man. That's a proud person who's not willing to be accountable. Listen to what they say. Even if it hurts, listen to what they say. Look at it honestly and grow in your transparency. You need a person to speak the truth to you, not just to cuddle you and say, poor you, poor you, poor you, but to call you to greatness. And so the wingman needs to call people if you can sense they're lying to themselves. Because remember, most addicts are really gifted at lying, and they're learning to become truthful. And so a good wingman will continue to press in that direction of, are you really being honest this morning? Is there something else going on you haven't told me? Okay, well, that's a good question to ask. But if the guy's lying to you, look at, I shared, as we were getting started on this call before most of you are on, with as Austin and I were talking early, I just shared a story about a gentleman who was with me every day, praying with me in Israel. And I was his pastor for 10, 11 days. And he gave the impression of being this godly man, and, was very, very humble and surrendered and committed and sincere. And, I got to tease with him quite freely, because what I thought I was getting was who he was. And it turns out that he didn't come to me and whisper, hey, look, I'm really struggling at home with the problem with porn, and I've had a number of affairs, and I'm actually quite harsh to my wife. His wife is on the trip with me. And she finally called me, said, I don't know what to do. And then she opens up about the real guy. well, that guy is not going to get, wouldn't matter who the wingman is. That guy who's playing hide and seek games is never going to get help. Never going to get help because he's not being honest, not being transparent. He gives the impression that he's doing really good when he's not. And so, but the other is problematic. There are men that, I use the expression that, they puke what's going on in their life and how bad they're doing. But they spend their time looking at the puke instead of what do we got to do to move on? What am I eating that's, causing this? And we don't want to glorify the mistakes you made. We don't want to, we don't want to focus on the relapse, though we do a relapse report to learn from the mistakes, and sometimes, a person focuses on the bucket of puke to kind of feel sorry for themselves and aren't prepared to move on. They're immature. They're not transparent. They're not really ready to do the work. But the wounds of a friend can be trusted, and you need to allow that wingman to speak straight to you. Number 5, the pleasantness of one's friend, the wingman, springs from his earnest counsel. Earnest counsel. Earnest means deeply concerned, genuinely sincere. Earnest counsel. Counsel is good direction, and like the beautiful thing about a wingman is that they're going to keep calling you to a direction that is right. Most of you, well, some of you are newer, so you wouldn't know, but I mean, I'm in my 32nd year of meeting weekly with another man named Larry. Some of you have met Larry in these calls. And Larry and I'll meet tomorrow morning again for an hour and a half together. And the earnest counsel, oh golly, Larry's, no offense, but Larry's better than my home church that I attend, because Larry specifically talks to me about the things I say I'm struggling with, and we volunteer. It's not like, oh, I'm not sure if Larry asked this question, I want to be honest. No, we volunteer with one another how we're doing. And the pleasantness, the beauty, the wonder, the enjoyment of one's friend springs from his earnest, genuinely sincere, well-motivated counsel. And the wingman is a sincere person who takes the role they play seriously in your life. But I'll tell you, at the hardest times that I've been through, I remember one in 2009 was likely one of the most difficult times in my life. And I not only volunteered that, this difficult thing had happened to me, but I went right over to his house and spent 4 hours over there just being in a safe place with Larry. And frankly, I cleaned his pool for about 4 hours. Just with something to do, and he would come out every hour and bring me another Coke Zero, anything else you need. And but it was very clear that he became a safe place for me. I was unbelievably transparent with him, and he knew the whole story. And boy, I tell you, he really, really compelled me to do what is right, and gave me such good counsel. But it came from me being honest with him. Number 6, instruct a wise man, and he will be wiser still. Teach a righteous man, and he will add to his learning. You see, the wiser you are, the more you listen to correction. Interesting little commentary yesterday. There's an organization that helps missionaries in difficult seasons of their life. And so when they come home, to Canada, from missions, and they're going through a hard time, maybe they got marriage troubles, maybe they got one of their kids doing poorly, maybe the person's admitted to having an addiction, or he's been involved in an affair over in the country they're serving. And whatever the issues are, they provide counseling. It could be, for just depression, whatever. And so when I gave a reference to a counselor who was going to work with this organization, at the end of the reference, I said, if you ever need someone who steps in at the worst of times, like whether there's an affair or the marriage isn't going to make it, or maybe there's a sexual addiction that's been revealed and there's no one else that wants to take that, I'd be willing to let my name stand to deal with those difficult situations, because I'm not afraid to walk through those things, and I've done it quite a bit. So they said, well, you'll have to go through a process. And I said, well, I really am not looking for new clients. I just felt, there might be one out of, 25 of these missionaries that has a situation that other counselors go, gee, I don't know what to do with this. And I go, I've dealt with those kind of things a lot. So I just said, I'd like to maybe be available to help missionaries like this. So they said, well, you got to go through this application process. I said, well, look, I'm not really looking for new clients. Can we just agree that if you run into a place where, and they said, no, we have to go through this process. So here I am going through being vetted, basically, to see whether I'm good enough, having to give them references and everything. And I said, this is crazy, because I said, I'm not looking for new clients. But I just really felt I was supposed to do this from the Lord. I tell you this because yesterday morning in my final interview, the lady sent me a bunch of questions that I was supposed to answer when she and I were together on the phone. And one of them said, something about what are the weaknesses that you see that you have that you still need to work on. And I went off and just started citing this and this and this and this and a lot of things you will have heard. And she said, well, that was really different. I said, well, what is that? Well, most people aren't as open about what they're struggling with as you. This is a lady I've never seen in my life. I talked to her once on the phone before yesterday for maybe about 10 minutes, asking some questions. And she's out of Calgary. And but she made that comment, most people ask that question, kind of give us a little bit of one. I said, I said to her there, I said, well, there's 5 or 6 things that I'm working on, and I could give you more if you want more. And she says, most people don't do that. Well, see, if you're going to be a growing, overcoming man of freedom, you're willing to be vulnerable. You're willing to admit your struggles, because if you're indeed wise, you become wiser still, because you add to your learning, because you let people speak into your life. And her comment that most people don't open up and share like that, there's the heart of a person that's going to be helped by accountability, because of here I'm volunteering to a person I never met. She could ask me, I could have given her one thing just to kind of let her know that, I'm human and all this. No, I just let her fly. And she was taken back by that. Well, I got nothing to prove. All these years, I realized, look, there's things I'm strong in and there's things I'm weak in. Do you want to know both? I'll tell you the things I think I'm gifted in, and I'll tell you the things I think I struggle with. And you see, there is the context upon which other people can speak into your life, because you acknowledge your struggles and your vulnerabilities and your limitations. You admit those openly to yourself and to other people as equally as you kind of talk about how good you are at this or that. And so keep in mind that what you've been doing hasn't gotten you where God wants you to be. You need wise input from a wingman, because if you really are wise, you'll open up and let someone speak into your life, and you become wiser still. You will add to your learning. There are men on this call that I have walked with, and many of them are leaders in the group or co-leaders in the groups, because I have seen the stinking change. When the wise input was given, they became wiser. They added it to their learning like another rung or two up a ladder, and they have overcome. They have got stronger, and they kept being more honest about things that needed to be dealt with. Beautiful way to go. Number 7, Proverbs 17:10, a rebuke impresses a man of discernment more than 100 lashes a fool. You see, if the accountability person has to kind of, beat you up to try to get you going the right direction, that's not the role. We don't want you to be the one who needs 100 lashes because you're a fool. We want you to say, you know what? This process of accountability, this process of having a wingman, this process of being vulnerable and transparent is what I want. And when my accountability partner, my wingman, when they rebuke me, it impresses me because I know I'm loved and they're calling me to greatness, and I will be a growing man of discernment because I allow this to be true. You see, wingmen confront. Now, nobody likes that, but you and I need outside input to win the battles you face. I mean, long before I started coaching people through recovery in this area, long before that, because this is, although I've been working with people for many years, let's just say the last 6+ years, I've been doing more and more in this area. But I mean, last 6 years, I've been accountable, well, 32 years with Larry, and then I was with Stephen for 8 years before that in Saskatchewan. So 40 years, I've been meeting weekly with another man. So, you know, I'm telling you to do what I've been doing for 40 years. Like, it's not, this is not just, well, when you're in recovery, you need to be accountable to let them help you through this, for you to be open and transparent. BS, you need to be accountable your whole stinking life. I'm committed that I will be accountable to another man weekly until I die. Because I want to be a man of discernment who, when someone rebukes me, I'm teachable. I will learn. I won't be the fool who has to be slapped around silly to finally get it in their head. I want to be a man who says, correct me. Show me the things that I need to deal with. Matter of fact, I volunteer. That's the key thing about making the accountability relationship work, to letting the wingman do his job. When you volunteer your struggles, and it's being honest and transparent, not going, oh, I relapsed again. Poor me. This is terrible. I'll never get out of this. We're not looking for that. Number 8, whoever conceals their sin will not prosper, but whoever confesses and renounces finds mercy. You see, there's such power in breaking the silence. There's such power in vulnerability. When you quit playing this secret little game, the gentleman on the Israel trip that gave the impression that he was this godly man and was so sincere and helpful and kind, and had me completely bamboozled, completely. Till I talked to his wife yesterday, and I heard the rest of the story. He would have been much better, and those 11 days together would have been so much better for him if he'd say, hey, Currie, you got some time to talk? I got some things I need to work through. Looks like you could be a guy who'd help me. That would have been really, really good. That'd have been really, really good. Because I had time to just, you know, go for a half-hour walk almost every day with him in those 10, 11 days. We had free times here and there. I could have sat at some meals and talked to he and his wife. You know what I mean? But he concealed the true story. He gave the impression that he's Mr. Godly. And yeah. So when you choose not to volunteer, when you choose not to be honest, when you choose not to disclose your struggles, and you conceal it, you're never going to get out of recovery. You'll never get beyond the addiction. But if you confess and renounce, okay, confess. You see, that's where some people get stuck. They admit and they struggle, and okay, I blew it again, I relapsed again, and all that. But they're not renouncing. Renouncing says, I don't want to go there anymore. And they're not willing to put the price in. They relapse, but there's simple things we ask people to do, and they don't do them. Then they relapse again, and I don't get it. I don't get it why I keep relapsing. I could tell you. Have you done this, this, and this? No. Have you dealt with this soul wound in your life? No. Have you really been transparent on a day-to-day basis? No. When you start to sense it coming along, knowing your triggers as you should by now, are you reaching out to people? No. Okay, so don't ask why you're relapsing all the time. And so what happens is a wingman calls for honesty, and you, as the person who's being held accountable by the wingman, you need to break the silence. You need to quit the secret game. Hiding the problems won't get you freedom, or just, admitting, that you struggle with this, but you really have this, and this going on too. But you're kind of open up about this one, and then maybe half of this one, but you don't talk about these other things that are still going on. And yeah, I just really respect men who want to come clean, who want to quit hiding, quit living in the shadows, but are coming out. And powerful way to live. Wingman principle number 9: fools mock making amends for sin, but goodwill is found amongst those who are upright of heart. Fools mock at making things right with other people, but goodwill, good relationships are found with those that are upright of heart. Interesting. A sharp young man that I really respect asked me last week. He'd had a relapse, and he said, because of the nature of relapse, it wasn't porn or masturbation or anything. I think I need to reset my numbers, but it wasn't that. So I don't think I'm going to tell my wife about it. And I said, well, no, I think you should. Well, yeah, but I didn't, and he's explaining why he doesn't want to hurt his wife. I respect that desire. But if you don't want to hurt your wife, then don't do the things that are questionable. And so I explained that if it comes out later, she's going to say, why did you lie to me? Why did you hide this from me? And I called him to greatness. I said, I think it'd be wise for you to admit it to your wife and apologize for, having wandering eyes type of deal in one location. And I respected his honesty. I really did. So he's scoring well on the wingman accountability being vulnerable thing, but he wasn't going to score well at first about making amends for his dishonesty with his wife. And so what happens is when a person does that, yes, it does hurt, but there's a growth in trust because he's even being accountable on this. And so yeah, because you see, a godly man is one who admits his sin, makes changes, and seeks reconciliation. Good wingmen call you to greatness. They don't let you stay there. Good story. I used to, be one of the lead pastors of a church of 4,000 here in Abbotsford called Northview Community Church. I was there 10 years. In year 7, yeah, I got the book right here, matter of fact. But in year 7, I was given a sabbatical, which was 3 months to just mature and in one of the chapters of this book called 7 Seasons in a Man's Life by Patrick Morley, I think the book was just written to me. And at one point, it said, you need to get everything clean in your life and really come clean about what you're facing. So have a look. I wrote down all the things I needed to change in my life. And it's a full page of red, but in particular, making amends, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 different people were listed here that I had to go and make things right with. And I showed this list to Larry. And then I actually rewrote it to make it even clearer on this sheet that's tucked in here. And this is well, I'm going to guess this would have been 25 years ago, in that range, that yeah, that I did that. And it is 25 years ago this year. And that's a process that a person who is serious about growing in their faith will, when they get things right with God, just like we do with the 12-step program, you share it with someone else and God. And then what are the amends you need to make? So I had those 7 or 8 people that Larry and I agreed, okay, well, I'm going to try to get these 2 this week. And, within the 3 or 4 weeks, I'd made amends with those people that I felt I was, holding hard feelings against, or I maybe let them down or whatever. And so that's what I call you to, that same kind of operating. And number 10, now then, my sons, people, listen, pay attention what I say when it comes to your challenges, pornography, acting out, love addiction, whatever. Do not let your heart turn to her ways and stray to her past, the addiction ways. Many are the victims she has brought down. Her slain are a mighty throng. Her house is a highway to the grave, leading down to the chambers of death. Don't kid yourself. The whole addiction journey, chasing after porn and all that goes with it, unbridled lust and passion that dishonors the Lord will destroy you. The struggle has to end. You have to fight to get freedom. And so a godly man is one who admits his sin, makes changes, and you let the wingman call you to greatness. And yeah, I 100% challenge you to make a strong stand saying, this will end in my life. That you will defeat the enemy that's saying you'll never get freedom from this. And that you will humble yourself, be transparent, be accountable, be open to your wingman, that you will volunteer yourself. You won't say, well, my wingman, they didn't ask the right questions. They should know that I'm addicted to lying. They should be asking me. No. If you want to be accountable, you volunteer yourself. And so who's got your back and whose back do you have? And my challenge is that we would grow in our willingness to be transparent and vulnerable and open, because the opposite of addiction is connection. On the other hand, that you would do a better job at being a wingman in somebody's life. Well, there we go. My prayer is that this discussion about the way of a wingman will clarify, in hopefully a practical, biblical way, looking at those Proverbs, of what it means to be a wingman, and also what it means to surrender to the wingman in your life. Let's talk about it.